Um, I would like to start actually answering your question. Is there a future for the gas companies? And you said, believe it or not. I believe you. I'm a returner to the market. I'm a believer in the market. Haven't been here for 7 years, though. How many of you were here 7 years ago? Hand up. 30%, I would say, something like that. It's a good thing that new people are entering into the market. But at that time, for you who stayed in the market over this time, you think that 2012, something like that, that was almost like yesterday, wasn't it? For me, returning to the business, that was eons ago. I've been working for eons ago. Because at that time, when we were talking about the market, there were huge investments into electricity generation on gas. We had huge investments into biogas production, huge investments into the transportation sector. We had a world that hadn't really decided where it wanted to go. We could help them at that time. Today, everything looks different. I'm going to talk a bit about, I'm just a couple of weeks on the job, so you can't expect me to talk about taxes or other important things. But I'll try to give you a bit on my take on what's happening now, right now, what I think is important right now. I'm going to try to put a larger context into the Swedish context. And I'm going to try to end off by saying some words on what I think that a system operator should actually do over the coming years. First, I'm going to say a couple of words on why it says on my tag Swedegas Top Holding AB. One could also question, how could you leave the electricity business right now when all the electrification is happening and all the fantastic things are happening on the electricity side? And my last portfolio, we had a lot of hydropower and a lot of wind power. There are things that has been forgotten over the electrification times, and that is that gas powers the transition here and in Europe. And you shouldn't forget that. And we had owners that wanted to create a new company on that basis, creating benefits for customers and for the society that we have around us. That was the globally fourth largest infrastructure investor, First State, who has acquired 2 companies so far, Weum and Swedegas. We're going to have a huge focus on delivering value to the society and creating value for customers out there. And we'll see where this new group will end up. I don't know yet, but I'll come back to that. So, talking a bit about where everyone else has started here in this conference, and that is over here, of course. This is right now the top layer of everything, the sustainability of the society. It's incredibly important, and it goes down into several different very important trends. And now I have to apologize. When I prepared these slides yesterday, I didn't really realize that this speech was supposed to be given in English. So my slides are in Swedish, but I'll trying to translate for you guys so that you get it as well then. But the sustainability trend, which is an incredibly strong global trend that we have, has resulted in a lot of important things. Number one is of course the COP21 agreement. I was part of the COP15 when nothing happened, and it took several years to get to COP21 and the 1.5 degree target. And after that, we have the 2030 targets that was just decided last year from the EU. And last year we also had the Swedish targets coming into legislation, the targets that were made up in 2016. So all of that is happening now and coming down from the global top down to everyone. But we also have other trends. We have electricity price or generation prices coming down. We have electrification of the transport sector and the transport sector changing. And we have a lot of global companies driving this change. I'll come back to them. But although we talk a lot about this top trend changing our world, I would challenge that and say we're not in a global trend. We're in a glocal trend. It sounds better in English than in Swedish. Glokal sounds like something you take away ice with or something like that. But we're in a global trend. There are big, huge trends coming from the global side, but we actually have a lot of new customer behaviors as well. I'm also chairman for GEOD, that's the trade association in Brussels, for district system operators in electricity, gas, and district heating. And I think they put it very well when they argue that the trends are actually divided into three big trends. One is, of course, the decarbonization that we're working in when we're working with a couple of the sustainability targets. But the other ones are things like decentralization. Companies, cities, customers, they want to decide themselves. They want to be system operators themselves. And legislative, they will be able to do that as well on the electricity side. I'll get back to the gas side soon. Digitalization is a word that we use, every one of us, but we of course know that digitalization is not taking analog things over to digital things. It's a new customer behavior. I want to control things myself. I want to be aware of what's happening. I don't want to know what's happening, how many cubic meters of gas I'm using right now. It's important to me. Not because I'm making my business decision on that, but because I want to know. So there are a lot of local or from bottom up trends going on. For us as companies, or any business actually that you're in, this is the largest order or requisition that we've had, coping with the huge global targets that we have, but also the customers' needs and changes in their behavior. We will have to cope with that. And sometimes when we sit in our organizations with all gas people or all electricity people, or if you're just the turbine people meeting, we're starting with ourselves and we are trying to put our own products into some sort of larger system. We're talking about how are we going to put our projects out to the market. But the pull is actually the big trend that we have right now. You can't see what's on this slide. It's World Bank's ranking of the largest economies of the world. There are 31 countries, 69 companies. And I think it's incredibly interesting. I haven't been through all of them, but most of them. But all of those that I've been looking into, they have decided their path forward. Even if you go to like China National Petroleum, that was my first thing to look into because I was thinking they haven't really decided, but they have. If you look into the largest company, Walmart, they are going to reduce emissions with 1 billion ton of carbon dioxide. 1 billion ton carbon dioxide. The Swedish emissions are 55 million tons. They're going to reduce with 1 billion tons. How are they going to do that? It's not through doing things from everyone in their supply chain to be clean. And they're going to reduce the emissions with 1 billion ton. So what I'm saying is, the transition is real, it's happening, it's fairly new. If you just look into the, did you want to take a picture? You can go into the World Bank's homepage, you'll find it over there. But everyone is delivering as well on this one. In 2017, we had 85% of the investments in Europe on renewable energies. So it's here, it's happening, it's fairly new, and we have to understand that what we were thinking when I stood here 7 years ago, it's a totally new ball game today. I'm going to put this in a bit of a Swedish context. What does this mean for Sweden then? And I'm also going to try to explain on why are the politicians thinking like they are thinking right now? What is top of their agenda? So the Swedish energy transition will cost 1,550 billion crowns. 1,550 billion crowns. The value is 6,000 billion crowns. So it's a good business to do that. For every crown you get 4 crowns back. 1,550 billion crowns. But if you look to this slide, what it actually consists of, its electricity grid is a third of that amount. A third of that amount. And most of it is in the local networks. So what happens then? If you have to do the transition, you have to have huge investment into the electricity networks. You have problems like permits, investments, sharing your view on strategy. How much do you really need in transmission on the electricity grid and so. So you enter into capacity challenges. And today we have like cities like Stockholm, Uppsala, Västerås, Malmö. There is no capacity left. And you have cities like Gävle, Göteborg, Södermanland, Östersund, where you have some. You actually have only 2 places in Sweden, and that's Luleå and Skellefteå. And you can understand why it's Skellefteå, because, where you actually can attract new businesses. So if you take now these facts, cost you 1,550 billion. You have to put 500 billion into the networks. You will have problems all over the time because you won't get the capacity going. You can't attract new industries. What do the customers do then? Because who's going to pay this? It's the customers. And you know how it is right now, right? That you have a lot of challenges, a lot of politicians, customers that are complaining on the electricity tariffs. So if you imagine that you can take out all of this on Fru Jönsson out there, I think you're mistaken. We will have to solve this issue in another way. We will have to create flexibility where we are. We will have to create microsystems in the Swedish energy system so that we can have as low cost as possible there. And this is not just a Swedish trend, I would say. This is also a European trend. Now we have the gas year in Europe. It starts with the Madrid Forum, or we've had preparations for the Madrid Forum in June. We'll have a second Madrid Forum in, I look at you, do you know that? Yeah, the first one in June, and the second one is only a couple of months later. Yeah. And then we'll have a new commission, and then we'll start the work with the gas year and see what kind of new legislation we will have. But some things are certain. We have an increasing part of decarbonized or low carbon gases into the grid. In Sweden, this is from the gas barometer. We're soon being hitting 25% in the gas grid. And we have the possibility of sector coupling. So there are a lot of tools for us to use to facilitate new flexibility, changes in the transport sector, and so on and so forth. And it's not that hard to understand, of course, because of course the natural gas and the biogases and the other gases has a lower CO2 exposure than the alternatives. And the biogas production and other decarbonized gas products are increasing in the infrastructure. And the infrastructure is well developed. I mean, we've been investing billions and billions and billions in an infrastructure where we both can transport and trade things. So with this renewable or with this sustainable product, we can actually have a fantastic way of trading it between the countries as long as we get it going. You can't say that for a lot of the other possibilities that are. And we have a growing need of flexibility and changes in the transport sector. So there are a lot of fundamentals that tells us go on with gas, both in Sweden and in Europe. But there is a problem. And I've taken some words from two colleagues, Mattias Jensen from Frontiers Economics and Florian Amakora from the DG Energy, that says that while green and synthetic gases are increasingly recognized because we are always talking about it, the political discussion still circles around natural gas and the fossility of natural gas. And this is basically a problem because we have a fantastic infrastructure with fantastic products in it, and we are talking about the fossility of the natural gas. So I think that we will have to, as gas companies, all of us, we will have to do some other things. And for us as network companies, I think that some of my initial ideas as a couple of weeks in the job are the following then. We will have to be neutral, of course, but active market facilitators. We have money to invest. We sit on a lot of tables, both in Europe and in Sweden. We know the market. We have a lot of good people. We should be active in developing the market. So that is the first thing, active, neutral market facilitator. But facilitating markets, in order to do that, you need people to want you. Because if you can't, you won't have a voice in that market. So for us, it will be very important to get the dialogue in a place where we can offer a value to the society, to what they need right now. And as you understand, what they need is, of course, the transition, but they also need flexibility. They also need changes in the transport sector. We are very good at making long targets, 2050, 2030 targets. I'll give you the news. They don't listen to those sort of targets. They won't give us any political decision on that sort of targets. We will have to try to start to do things now. Just as Gasum does. You invest in things right now in order to facilitate the transition. We will have to do that as well. We will have to offer value to the society and deliver on that one now. But we will also have to support our customers when they are in their transition, in their business. We'll have to find ways to do that. To end off where you ended off, we have to get this product to grow in the society. Then we get a better use of our infrastructure. We will lower the costs. We will get the pressure on taxations. We will have a larger pull from the market for our products. So, with that said, and being back again from 7 years in the cold, being back to the gas heat again, I will just say how glad I am to see you all here. Thank you very much for listening.
I must say I'm very impressed by all the speakers. I've been looking at my watch all the time, and you've been on exactly the minute we said in the program. That's very impressive. Of course, we are very glad you're back. You left when I started. I don't know if that's...
Could be.
That's the reason you left, but,
Right.
but I'm very glad you're back. And I'm also very glad you talked about the problem with the electricity net capacity, because yesterday we heard a lot about electricity, and it always sounds like it is very easy. You can electrify everything and then everything is solved. And it's not that easy. And like you said, I think we need a lot of solutions, and I think that will take a lot longer than sort of it sounds like when people are talking about it. Earlier we've been talking about LNG, and you're sort of head of the gas infrastructure network. So if you look at both of them, is there a competition, or do they strengthen each other, or what's your views?
I think that basically you have a couple of trends. You have the global trend and the LNG entering into the market. You have the shale gas issues and all of that. So LNG will of course be one of the suppliers to the big European networks in the future. So that is the one big thing, and I'm positive we'll see a lot more of import terminals around in the future. But then you have the other thing, and that is the use of LNG in places where you don't have access to pipelines. And we've been mentioning transport sector both when we talk about heavy trucks and when we talk about what you call it? Say again? Maritime, right. And I mean, the logic is totally solid on the maritime side that we will have to have LNG into that one. So, as I said, I think we will see LNG entering in more and more clear to the market in these two areas, or these two areas. Then you have the other nice issue, and that is on the production side, and LBG. I mean, mostly you have organic waste in places where you don't really have. You have it in cities, and that's good. You can put the biogas into the grid, but then you have organic waste in the forests and on the farming side, and there you actually have a lot larger potential on the biogas side than we see from cities today. And I think that instead of constructing pipelines all over the northern part of Sweden to get hold of that sort of production, potential future production, I think that LBG would be the possibility there. But we will have to go down in costs when it comes to both liquefaction and taking it back again. So there are things to be done. But if you're a believer, I mean, technology will develop. So,
do you think there will be a new gas network pipelines built in Sweden, or what's your view on that?
I mean, we're talking about. I heard in Brussels 2 weeks ago a man that was talking about hydrogen, and he said, "Forget the myth, do the math." And what he wanted to say is, of course, a lot of players in the market, they are critical over things due to ideological issues. And but actually there's a rationale to do things. And if you talk about rationale, if Gasen would build a terminal in the mid-Sweden area, there are a lot of industries that wants to take part of that sort of gas, taking away coal and taking away oil out of their systems. Would you then build a gas network to support them? I don't know, but no.
We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah.
The future will tell.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Some bees for you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.